Mayor Jon Nehring has been the mayor of Marysville since 2010. He's raised his family here. He has a background in business and brings some of those things that from the private sector to the way he runs the city. He's happy to be here tonight, and it's my great pleasure to welcome Mayor Jon Nehring.
Thanks, Connie. Thank you very much. Thank you, Connie, and thank you all very much. It's really great. I love the state of the city. It's a wonderful opportunity to get to speak directly with folks throughout the community, both here in the building, which I really appreciate people coming out, and then online on Facebook Live, which I appreciate those who have tuned in for that as well. I do want to acknowledge a few people also in attendance, if you'd bear with me for a bit. First of all, we have some city council members here. I'm just really grateful for our city council. We've got an excellent city council here in the city of Marysville. All 7 of them really work hard on behalf of our community, and there's not a lot of ego there. There's just a lot of good hard work on behalf of what's right for Marysville. So Councilmember Tom King is here. Councilmember Peter Candelius back there, and Councilmember Kelly Richards. And did any other council members sneak in? I don't want to forget any of them, but we have Mark James on the council, Councilmember Camille Norton, Steve Mueller, and our council president, Michael Stevens. So thank you to our city council. I want to recognize Linwood Mayor Christine Frizzell. Thanks for coming down from Linwood. Partner with her on a lot of public safety work and other things. Our fire chief is back there, Chief Vanderpool. Thanks for showing up here tonight. And Judge Fred Gillings, thank you for coming as well. And then our director team, I really want to recognize the director team at the City of Marysville. These are the folks that I work with on a day-to-day basis as we manage the operation of the city. And we'll start with Haley Miller, our Community Development Director. Back there, Haley, if you could raise your hand. Police Chief Eric Scarpin, right there. And Megan Hodgson's our Human Resources Director. Jeff Laycock is our Public Works Director. And Susie Elsner administrates the courts. And our Finance Director, Jennifer for our Santa Ana. Oh, there's Jennifer. Jennifer's right there. Our City Attorney, John Walker. John does a great job keeping us in legal shape. And then our IS Director, Stefan Doherty. I don't know if Stefan's here tonight, but he manages our IS team. And then our city administrator has been with us about 6 months, Jennifer Stapleton, right there. And, Tara Mizell, our Parks Director. Sorry, Tara. Oh, shouldn't forget Tara. And Jennifer Stapleton, our city administrator, who's done a fantastic job and gotten up to speed very quickly here in the last 6 months. And then County Council Member Nate Nehring, I want to thank him for coming. And Gary Kemp from our Planning Commission. Appreciate you coming as well, Gary. So thank you. It's great to have my family here as well. My wife, Marianne, and my daughter, Kristen, my son, Nate, and my mom, Diane, and son-in-law, Tyler, here. And really happy to have my granddaughter, Kennedy, here. That's probably the most important person in the whole audience. So the first slide we'll go to here just is kind of an overview of the city. Almost 75,000 residents now. That just gives you an idea of some of the key stats there with the city. And then we go on to budget. Always like to start with budget because you can't do anything without a city budget. So the next slide here shows you some things about our city budget. The total revenue for 2024 was just over 120 million. We have a long-standing history of fiscal prudence here at the City of Marysville, working in conjunction with the City Council. The city's on solid ground. We're not flush with cash. Nobody's flush with cash right now, but we do have a solid financial footing. We have a balanced budget. We've got a healthy amount of emergency reserves. And we also have been able to, thanks to the hard work of the City Council as well, not raise property taxes again with the latest biennial budget that was passed. So it's been over a decade since the City of Marysville raised the city's portion of the property tax. So, of course, your property tax is a laundry list of different things. Only about 10% of that goes to the City of Marysville. So of every dollar that is on your property taxes, about a dime goes to the City of Marysville. So we don't account for the other entities, but speaking just for the City of Marysville there. On to the next slide, public safety, or the city budget, the revenue side of the house there is on the next slide as well. About $109 million was spent in 2024. And the vast majority of that goes to public safety and public works. Those are our 2 largest departments. You see that broken down by enterprise fund and by general fund. What that means is your enterprise funds are essentially charges for service. water, sewer, garbage, things like that. So those monies have to be spent in that area. So obviously you can't, as a city, divert any of that $57.8 million from those charges to fund a police department, for instance, or to fix streets or parks or whatever. But the general fund is where that lies, and that's where the priorities are set for police and streets and courts and parks and all of those different things. So that gives you a kind of breakdown there of your expenses. Going on to talk about some of the priorities here in Marysville, we do have a capital improvement program that we've put into place. This is the first year we've done that. It consolidates components of all the separate master plans in the city into one tool to plan for infrastructure needs and to plan for all the things that are coming. It covers transportation, it covers parks and rec, covers all our city facilities, water, sewer, garbage, the golf course. You can find this capital improvement plan on our website, and if you're interested in that kind of thing, it's actually a great read, and it gives you an idea of what we're planning for capital improvements in the city. So take a look at that if that interests you. Going forward, this will be updated with each biennial budget, and the City Council retains final approval of all capital projects for each budget cycle. So we do a 2-year budget. This is our third time around with a 2-year budget. So the City Council just passed a 2025-2026 budget, which was a very fiscally prudent spending plan that met all the needs of government that you depend on, and also, like I said, had a healthy reserve available and provided for some of those capital improvements that you'll see in that plan. And there's really no greater priority than public safety. When it comes to talking about the budget, when I'm out in the community, when our council members are out in the community, we hear about your priority of public safety. We all live here as well in city limits. We pay all the taxes you do. We deal with all the different things in the community that you do. And public safety, there's no greater priority for the city council and for myself than public safety either. And so we're really pleased, and I'm really pleased to announce tonight a significant achievement of our police department that earned just recently state accreditation from the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs. This is a really big deal. Only 31% of the departments in the state of Washington have achieved this. The evaluation process took over 1 year to complete. It examined every aspect of department operations. And that was just the evaluation portion. It took several years to prepare for this. And then they come in with a fine-tooth comb and go over every nook and cranny of our police department. Included comprehensive reviews and on-site evaluation by WASPIC experts. The chief, I want to thank him. Him and his team did an amazing job pushing this through and sticking with it for several years. And we have to maintain that now. So it shifts from getting it to maintaining it. Benefits for you as residents, they're numerous. I'll just name a few high-level ones. But it ensures you of a confirmation of professional standards that exist in our police department that have been looked over and peer-reviewed. It ensures fair and consistent handling of all public safety matters, enhanced trust between the community and the police department, and a more efficient use of taxpayer resources came about from this review. Police calls for service. This is really a key stat that we look at every year. It's interesting to look at this chart and see how that's bounced around over the years. You'll notice post-COVID we had a dip, and then we had a significant rise as well. This past year in 2024, we did see about a 0.4% dip in calls, which is good news. We did have some state laws I've talked with you about in the past that were passed in 20 and 21 that really, I think, hampered police departments across the state from being able to practice effective policing and hold people accountable, particularly in the area of drugs, drug abuse, and property crimes. We got some of those fixed. I co-lead a group called Mayors and Business Leaders for Public Safety with a bunch of mayors throughout the county. Mayor Frizzell's a part of that group. And this group is united across the ideological spectrum, all the way around the issue of public safety. One thing that mayors find out real quick on the ground is that we have to solve problems, and so partisanship kind of gets checked at the door, and we know that we need to solve problems, and public safety is one of the big ones. So we've united around common sense accountability laws, and we've gone to the state legislature on numerous occasions, asked them to repeal some of the damaging laws that legalize drugs across our state. The law that did not allow for police to pursue in almost any instance was really damaging. We got both of those, some fixes put into those. They're not perfect, but they're fixes. And kudos to the state legislature for listening and fixing those. There's a number of bills being run this year that we're supportive of, and some that we we asked them to run as well. So we'll continue to work on that, but calls for service have started to go down, so that's a good thing. And the really good thing is the total number of crimes reported that you'll see here on the next slide. Some of the crimes that were reported are down 3.7% from 2023. Police staffing levels continue to go up for us. That's a good thing as well. The last couple of state of the cities, that's been a particular problem. We had non-deployable rates of 25 to 30%, meaning we had the budgeted positions, but we were only hiring about 70 to 75% of the officers that we had budgeted for. It wasn't a matter of money, it was a matter of just finding people that wanted to do police work in Washington State. So some of these laws that we tried to get cleaned up were targeted toward that as well, just making people want to do police work here again. Thanks to our chief and the team here, there's a lot of support for public safety, and thanks to you as citizens that support your police officers in town. This is a place that people want to come and work, and we're down to 7 open positions in our department. I think our non-deployable rate's been cut almost in half. And so with that comes an ability to do more proactive policing for the first time in a long, long time. And that showed up in some of the stats in '24. There was an increase of 21.7% of officer-initiated contacts. So that's not reactive, that's proactive. In 911 related contacts, there was a 9.3% decrease in those. So that represented about 36,000 of the calls. The officer initiated was about 33,000. So our officers, when we are able to put our specialty units back in play, our night team, which goes out and deals with some of these drug houses and drug areas around town, and some of our other task force, we're able to put out and do more proactive work, which is a big thing for public safety. Having our own city jail, it's not glamorous, but that's something we share with our friends in Linwood. We're the only 2 municipalities that have a city jail. You as citizens had the foresight to vote that into reality about 6 or 7 years ago. We put that before the citizens and said, we had a city jail that was built in the 80s for a city that was under 10,000. And we had just nowhere near the space that we needed. We put it on the ballot to build a new public safety center in a jail facility, and the citizens voted for it overwhelmingly. And like I said, it's not glamorous, but what that allows us to do, and it was really, I think, a great thing for the city to vote that in, it allows us to ensure that people that are committing crimes and not willing to get help have consequences. Cities that don't have a municipal jail are dependent on other jails taking their people, which sometimes doesn't happen, and they pay a premium for that. So we have saved upwards of $4 million in 2024. If we had to take the people we put in our jail and house them in another facility, that's about what you would have paid extra as a taxpayer. So that jail will pay itself off over the years, but it also, more importantly really, or at least as importantly, provides our officers with a place to bring people, and we don't have to depend on other people being willing to take them. So we would prefer that we didn't need to put anybody in jail, but that's not the reality of the world that we live in. About 75% of those booked into jail were on new criminal charges this year. 25% were for outstanding warrants. So that is kind of a picture of the jail. I wanted to go over this as well. This is an important thing. We talked about this last year. If you were at the State of the City, it had just been put into play. But last fall, the City Council and the administration, I worked with Chief Scarpin and Attorney Walker, and we put some things together to take to the City Council around mandatory minimums. The City Council was extremely supportive of this and dug into this wholeheartedly. And what a mandatory minimum is we were looking at the drug issue. This is an issue where most of our crimes, particularly most of our property crimes, stem from drug abuse or some type of addiction where people are robbing to feed that habit or any number of things that come from that. And so we looked at things like theft, trespass, vehicle prowl, public use, public drug consumption. And the law is that if there's 3 times that you commit that and get caught and get convicted, then you need a timeout and a mandatory minimum sentence, regardless of what anybody else says. And that minimum sentence, we set at 30 days. Council passed that unanimously. I appreciate them for doing that. And what it does is, remember, you've gotten caught once. You've been prosecuted and convicted in a court of law. You've gone out and done it again, gotten caught, gotten prosecuted, been convicted in a court of law a second time. Then you've decided to do it a third time and gotten caught and convicted again. So we're saying the best thing for you as an individual at that point is a timeout. Certainly the community needs some relief from that criminal activity. So it holds the person accountable. It also gets them hopefully detoxed if they have an addiction problem in jail. And again, most of these crimes are stemming from addiction problems. A 2 or 3 or 4 day stay in jail just doesn't do the trick. But after a week or 2 weeks in jail, our social worker team is sometimes able to get through to them. We lead with compassion up there. The goal is not just to throw people in jail for the sake of doing that. The goal is to get at the root of the problem, try to fix it so we don't have this revolving door. And so if people will accept the help, we will take them out of jail and put them into a treatment program and hopefully fix the problem and get them a second crack at life. And that's what the goal really is. If they don't accept that help, then they're going to serve the minimum for sure. The first several months of this program, almost half of the individuals who went into jail did accept the treatment option, which is great. That's the goal, and I think that's a pretty good number. The council did extend that here this last November or December from 30 to 45 days if you commit a fourth offense. So and we added also to that malicious mischief is one of those crimes, graffiti, vandalism, things of that nature. So that's a perfect lead into our CARES team. This is our Community Assistance for Resources and Empowerment. Used to be called our Embedded Social Worker Team. I like the CARES team. I think it's a great name change that the chief and the team put into place. This team's been operating for several years now. There's some great stats for you there. What their goal is, once again, is to get at the root problem of why crimes are being committed. We believe in accountability, absolutely. You're going to be held accountable for your crimes if you commit them in Marysville. We also believe in trying to fix that root cause so that the citizens aren't putting up with that and so that the person struggling with addiction or whatever they're struggling with can get back on their feet. And so this CARES team's tasked with doing that. And you see that it pairs an officer with a social services case manager. The team finds treatment and other services for people willing to help, temporary housing, things of that nature. And you can see from the stats up here that we're making great progress helping people break this cycle. Recruitment and hiring, I mentioned that a little bit ago. These will give you some stats that you can see up here on that. Should have brought Molly in probably for a hello. But Molly's our new wellness facility dog. So as I said, hiring's been difficult over the years. We're finally starting to see some breakthroughs. Molly was sworn in here this past fall. I want to recognize Maddox Dog Training Academy that donated Molly as our wellness facility dog for our police department. And ongoing training and expenses are paid for by the Marysville Police Foundation. So thank you to both of those organizations, both nonprofit organizations that allowed us to be able to do that. And she's a great asset. Municipal court, similar to having your own police department, obviously your own jail, having your own municipal court is a huge thing as well. We don't rely on other courts to determine whether they're going to prosecute our cases or not, whether they have the staff to prosecute our cases or not. They're done right here at our local municipal court. We have 2 exceptional judges, and Judges Towers and Gillings, and then Susie with her great work administrating the court. They issued 385 search warrants in this past year, 199 for the Marysville Police Department. 173 of those were issued after hours. That's another great thing about the local judges here is, obviously crime's not a 9-to-5 situation. In fact, a lot of times it's committed on non-working hours, non-traditional working hours. Our judges are available for our officers to get these warrants night, day, weekend, whenever, and that pays off for us a lot of the time. They had almost 10,000 cases before your Marysville court, 9,687 here in 2024. Of those, 7,700 plus were Marysville cases. We also contract out with some other entities. Lake Stevens is one, and so some of those cases are there as well. They have a mental health court, which is similar to some of the programs that I discussed with the Embedded Social Worker Program. A couple of people graduated from that this year, and many more are still in that program. They secured a grant to help cover public defense costs, which is important. That's an ever-rising cost for the taxpayers of Marysville. Conducted 4 jury trials and summoned over 1,600 citizens from Marysville and Lake Stevens as jurors, and prepared to start pretrial services through our probation department in 2025. So thanks to our courts for their great work. Emergency management, we have our own in-house emergency management, which is another great in-house entity. Sarah Lavelle and her team do a really great job on this. Some of you might have been in touch with this team with different programs. We launched a new Marysville Ready Neighbors program that encourages household preparedness. If you're interested in that, you can find more information on our City of Marysville website. Great way to prepare yourself and your neighborhood for an emergency. welcome new Marysville-ready businesses with a similar program for businesses this past year. They held 63 activities, 63 community activities, trainings, outreach events. Those included our popular CERT classes, Community Emergency Response Team classes. I run into a lot of people who have been through CERT and are now certified in that through that program. Thanks to the Fire District for their assistance with the CERT program as well. Amateur radio volunteer program that they put together, hosted the Big Shaker earthquake simulator to prepare for earthquakes, and co-hosted a disaster preparedness training for those with disabilities in our community, which was another important new event this year. They adopted a comprehensive plan for emergency management throughout the city, skill training, equipment upgrades, damage assessment tools, and a whole host of other things. You can also sign up for Marysville Alerts if you haven't already. 474 new subscribers. We had 474, in English, and 52 in Spanish subscribe to that. You can subscribe to that and get a notification right to your phone if there's an emergency or something, so we can help you with that if that's something you're interested in. So there's a lot happening there and a lot happening in the city as a whole, which leads to the comprehensive plan. So in addition to a 2-year budget, we at the administration and the city council tackled an 8-year update to our comprehensive plan this year, which is a big task. Haley, our community development director, and her team were responsible for putting that together, did a great job. I wanted to talk just briefly, so the Growth Management Act, which was passed by the state in the 1990s, and a lot of citizens don't realize this. I don't know that I realized it before getting into government, but the state mandates growth targets for cities in Washington State because the state is growing so fast. So what that means is we get a mandated growth target from the state that says, City of Marysville, you have to zone for X amount of new residents, new homes, new businesses, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have to zone for it. If they don't come and build, and if people don't want to move here, that's fine. We can't control that, but the state requires us to zone for it. So it's often that the council and I are sitting bemoaning the fact that we have such quick growth in the community. It's difficult to keep up with the infrastructure, and we wish it would pause, quite honestly, a lot of times. It's difficult to keep up with that. We had this kind of conversation at the city council meeting last night. That's not the reality in the state we live in. There's a lot of people moving in, and the state spreads that out amongst cities, gives you a growth target, you zone for it, and if they meet all the zoning requirements, they are allowed to build, and that's just the way that it works. A lot of local control has been removed from cities over the years in this area, and so the comprehensive plan deals with some of that. Marysville is expected to grow in the next 20 years, so the comp plan is updated every 8 years with a 20-year horizon to plan for that. And that design and planning period was just completed for the next 8 years at the end of 2024. And by the way, I'll be happy to take questions after this. So if you have questions that come up on this or any other thing, we'll have plenty of time for questions afterward. We had a nice Q&A after the last State of the City, so love to take your questions. Here's some new businesses that came to town. I always like to put this up. People like to see that. You probably know many of these, but just give you a moment to look through that. We're really proud of our businesses, a lot of small businesses, medium-sized businesses in Marysville, as well as large employers that are moving into our Cascade Industrial Center, which we'll move to next. The Cascade Industrial Center was designed to be an area for family wage jobs. Kids could grow up in our community and maybe work close to home instead of always having to commute down I-5 or 405, or individuals in the workforce right now could take advantage of that. So we're slowly but surely building up a jobs base out there. Ashandia is an exciting new company that moved in. That's a Swedish battery manufacturer. They make batteries for large boats. And this is their first North American facility, and they chose Marysville, Washington as that facility. So they are currently ramping up local hiring with good paying family wage jobs, and that'll be an exciting new addition out there. I think I mentioned last year we had Gravitics move in, a space module company that is building space modules that'll be launched on some various rockets. And so if you ever end up taking a vacation in space, you might very well be on a module that was built right in your hometown. Pepsi is here. Tesla is now out in that area. And then, of course, on the Arlington side, you've got some other businesses, an electronic airplane manufacturer and several others. So that's what the Cascade Industrial Center is. It's really the fastest growing manufacturing area in the county. It's a lot of the county's built out. So we see a lot of our manufacturing growth coming here. And even throughout the entire Puget Sound, this is recognized as a place to be. Excellent access to the freeway, to rail, close to airports and marine resources and things of that nature. Infrastructure is near and dear to my heart and the council's heart. This is a big deal. We're always thinking infrastructure. We get millions and millions of dollars in state and federal grants for infrastructure improvements. I want to salute our state legislature, our federal partners, for all of the money that we've received, not just in transportation infrastructure, but primarily in transportation infrastructure. Over the last several years, there's been probably upwards of $200 million in grants that are going into big infrastructure improvements in Marysville. This is one of them, the State Avenue widening project. This was really a 20-year project. Began in 2003 at the south end of town. And the last ribbon was cut, you saw it on this video, for the 104th to 116th portion of State Avenue. All of State Avenue is now 5 lanes, which was a big thing for our community. We have State Avenue, we also have 51st and 67th, but State Avenue is a big one for us, north-south. So you have a 5-lane roadway there. State Transportation Improvement Board and Federal Highway Administration were great partners on that. Great funding help, we couldn't have done it without them. Jeff Laycock and his Public Works team rode hard on that for all these years, and kudos to you for getting it done. Thanks to the City Council for providing the matching funds to those grant dollars. Added also sidewalks, improved traffic signals, street lighting and landscaping, and just a great project. We want to thank the citizens of Marysville. The Transportation Benefit District is something that you voted in as well. We don't generally, like I said, we haven't raised the city's portion of the property tax. I can't even remember the last time. It's been over a decade. What we try to do in Marysville is we have a taxing need, is to bring it to the citizens. That's how this public safety building got built, and that's how your pavement is preserved in Marysville so well. In 2014, the citizens passed a TBD. It's a 0.2% sales tax, which means that you share that expense with all the people that shop in Marysville from all over. That's the beauty of a sales tax as opposed to a property tax that would just be paid for by the residents of Marysville. So if Mayor Frizzell on her way out of town decides to grab some gas or go eat at one of our restaurants, she's going to help pay for our roads to be improved, which would be really fantastic. But that is really one of the great things about a sales tax. So that was a 10-year deal in 2014. And so in 2024, it had to be re-upped. So we put it back to the voters to see, are you happy with what's going on with that? And it was voted in overwhelmingly again. So thank you for that. That was not a new tax. It was just continuing the existing one. Brings in $3 million. That's where we get a lot of our matching dollars for these grants I'm talking about. Most grants you receive, they'll pay for, say, half of a project. The city's got to come up with the other half. So some of this money goes to that, and then a good chunk of it goes to just pure old maintaining all the roads we've got. There's a list of all the ones coming here that you'll get overlays and road repairs and whatnot in 2025. So it's how we maintain our roads and how we expand our transportation infrastructure. On to a few significant projects. I hold coffee clashes throughout the year, and I really appreciate the feedback we get at coffee clashes. I really like this because this idea came from citizens out in the Lakewood area. We held a coffee clash out there, and they said, hey, along 172nd, we got our Lakewood track team out there. We got a lot of people in those multifamily housing in Marysville that walk to the Lakewood School District. And so it was just a really unsafe situation. It's a state highway, so the city couldn't completely control it, but we once again worked with our partners at the state and gained permission to put this walking path in, which has been really great. And citizens out there were so grateful for that. We were able to execute that really quickly, thanks to the great work of the council budgeting for it and the staff in our public works team putting it together quickly, and the state helping us to get it approved as well. So that's now out there. We're also looking to improve pedestrian access to Cascade Elementary School this year, funded by state's Safe Routes to Schools program. It'll retrofit ADA ramps, add sidewalks, bike lanes, and a pedestrian activated crosswalk signal, which is important for the safety of the kids out there. We continue to work on Safe Routes to Schools all throughout the community. We get a lot of those grants, and we'll continue working on those out on into the future as well. One of my favorite projects is this project, because I remember working on this in 2015 and thinking, we finally got it funded, thanks again to our partners at the state, through the Connecting Washington package, and it was funded, I think they passed that in 2016. And I remember thinking 2025 is going to be a long ways off until we get this interchange built. But time flew by, and here we are. You're probably watching that construction right now. It'll work a lot better when the interchange is in. There's been some creaks, I think, with how the extra lane on I-5 was done first. I don't think it was originally intended that way. This is a state-led project. I think we were going to originally complete that when the northbound off-ramp was completed as well. So you just flow right off of that instead of everybody having to merge like they do now. But we're coming close to the end of that where you'll have the northbound off-ramp and you'll also have a southbound on-ramp. So this will be really important. If you're tired of the 4th Street congestion, particularly we're going to get, in one of our fastest growing areas is up here in the East Side foothills and the Sunnyside area. Most of those people will prefer to get off that further south exit, come off, take the 1st Street bypass up and get in that way. It'll free up 4th for a lot of other traffic. It'll also allow you, if you just don't want to worry about the train tracks, either getting on I-5 or off, you can just take that one. The city was through a lot of foresight and council funded this, built that 1st Street bypass a few years ago in anticipation of this to help feed that traffic up east. So that's a big project. We are looking at probably end of summer. That'll be completed and we'll look forward to that. A companion project is at 53rd and 61st where we're adding a traffic signal, turn lanes, bike lanes, and a new bicycle and pedestrian path there. Plan to finish construction on that in conjunction here with the interchange to help get that traffic up to the east side there. Another project, the 4th and 88th Street interchanges. This is a Tulalip Tribes-led project. We partnered with them because some of these are in the city of Marysville. We did get the state to fill in all the remaining funding on this last year. Thank you to them for that. And this will provide a series of roundabouts at 4th and 88th to help traffic flow. 88th is our most challenging area, I'll be honest with you. There's not a lot of options there. Oh, we would love to put in an overpass or add lanes and all that, but you've got a creek, you've got a bridge, you've got you got cemeteries there. We looked into that. Moving and dealing with a cemetery it's just really, really difficult. So it's a challenging area. So we're looking at small scale solutions, the roundabouts that'll help some things, as well as maybe some things that we can do at the intersection that Director Jeff Laycock's looking at that will roll out if we're able to find a way to do that. So those are some fixes coming there. And then the 156th interchange, this was in that same Connecting Washington package I talked about that funded this interchange. But this is one of the last projects in the package. We got it put in on one of the very last days that package was passed. We didn't even think it would get in there, but we got it in, and this one will put an full interchange out at the 156th overcrossing there, which is really important for all that development going on out there. We need a fix. 172nd is so crowded right now. So the only way to alleviate that really is to build that other interchange to get some of that traffic to a different on and off ramp. So this is a ways off still, but the design will start in 26 and the projected completion date by the state is in 2031. I am a little concerned, as I was back in 2016, that when you budget for something in 2016, you know it will cost something different in 2026 to 2031. We had to deal with backfilling money for this project because of that, and the state held up their end of the bargain and did that. And we hope, we haven't seen the projections on the cost of this, but my guess is we'll have to go back to the state and work hard on trying to backfill some money for this project. They've been good about doing that in the past, so we appreciate that. We are not doing, I should note, in case you hadn't heard the announcement, we are not doing the Grove Overcrossing project. It's the first real big transportation project we've had to pull the plug on. All these other ones we plugged away at, got the money, completing them. Grove proved to be really, really challenging. We were intending, and I've announced it's past state of the cities, we were trying to get money for a Grove Overcrossing, but what happened is the surrounding properties, there were some new owners there, and it got to be very difficult legally. A lot of people didn't want to sell, and it would have been a pretty intense legal process that we didn't really want to go through to deal with people that weren't really interested in selling to allow us to build that overcrossing, and it would have got very expensive. And then with inflation, it was getting even more expensive. So the original budget we had for that project was nearly doubled with all those costs, property acquisition costs, legal costs, inflationary costs. And we thought it's not a good bang for the buck for the Marysville taxpayer spending that much money on that. And so we're moving that money to try and build a overcrossing at 156th, which will be combined with that interchange if we can get it funded. There's a closed rail crossing to the west of 156th. We believe that would be a real shame to have an interchange there and then not be able to get directly over that. Obviously, you could wrap around and do some things, but we're going to try to get that done instead of the Grove Overcrossing. Downtown stormwater treatment plant, you saw this on the video. We opened this last May. It's a really important amenity for the city. Stormwater treatment facility here treats 460 acres of urban stormwater runoff. That's about 170 baseball fields. It's a scale that would typically require several acres. Our team was able to make it work on a half acre. It will clean 110 million gallons of water every year and prevent 100,000 pounds of pollution from entering EB Slough. And I love the way Jeff and his team designed this. If you haven't been to it, it's down on First Street. You know, when you think stormwater runoff, you think of some big pool of water or something. It's really built to feel like a park amenity almost. You can go and sit in there and relax. It's just a really nice, go down and take a look at it one time if you haven't. It complements our waterfront park, and thank you to the Department of Ecology for all of their help funding that project, the State Department of Ecology. And then a few upgrades I just wanted to mention on our wastewater treatment plant. We're currently installing several new pieces of screening equipment there that'll be done this spring. Equipment upgrades that'll provide more flexibility as well and save costs will be done later in the summer. And then if you're wondering, like I drive 528 a lot. If you're wondering what's going on with all that construction on the right side there on the south side of 528, it's a project to replace a 30-year-old deteriorating iron water main. It's taking some time, and that should be wrapped up here in the next, I don't know, few months, but the construction began in September, and this spring we're hoping to wrap that up and get that water main replaced. So that's what's going on 528. Back to the waterfront, we're really, one of our more popular trails is that waterfront, EB waterfront trail that you see right there. Of course, this new interchange is going to bring a new public focus, I think, to our waterfront. Timber mills were the prominent industry there until about 25 years ago. After that, Marysville started to acquire the different properties on that. Main reason for that was there was a lot of environmental cleanup that was required to do anything on those properties, so the private sector didn't want to touch it because there's unknown costs. As a city, we have access to federal brownfield grants that we could apply for, which we've done over the years to clean a lot of those contaminants up. So now we have options. We can do some city parks amenities with it. We could flip it back into the private sector to try and get some things that we'd like down on the waterfront. It just opens up a lot of options. So that's where we're at now. The first priority will be relocating our public works yard out of there and out of the floodplain. And so we've worked out a purchase of the school district's property here in central Marysville that they're not using probably about half of. And so it allows them to get out of a facility that they're not using all of, move into our old city hall on State here. We will be able to move our public works yard pretty much turnkey with a few improvements onto that property. And then we can bring some fill in to deal with the floodplain down here where our old public works yard is. And so that's a big deal that we're working on. And then an economic analysis is underway. You might have heard of a sports facility. This is the preferred site for a regional youth sports facility, indoor, basketball, volleyball, wrestling, those kind of things, and a family fun center and different things. This county's been looking at this for a number of years, and that was the preferred site for it. I want to say that while that's a great thing and we hope that comes to fruition at some point in the future, you have to have a private partner come in and raise the money and build that. So we aren't there yet. We were working with a private developer, wasn't able to put the financing together. We're working now, we got a $300,000 state grant for Pinnacle to go out and do a study that'll help inform, I think, future developers to see what they might need to do this and how realistic it is. So we hope to see something like that come to fruition on our waterfront. If you have kids that have been involved in youth sports and tournaments, you've traveled all throughout the state like I did when my kids were young, and you've wondered, boy, why don't we have one of these close to home? So that's kind of the goal with that, but we'll see. Again, if it has to have a private partner to make it work, and it'll have to pencil out for them before they would ever build it. Yeah. So as we begin to wrap up, maybe start thinking of some questions, but we do want to mention the new playgrounds and park improvements, quality of life improvements for the community. We have an amazing inventory of parks and trails that Tara and her team have done such a great job with. This Strawberry Fields complex I want to highlight. Thank you to Snohomish County and to Amazon for providing the bulk of the funding for this. Gives us a great new park amenity for our North End citizens. We also replaced aging parks with new structures at Jenny's Nature Park right off 528. Wow, is that a popular one? I don't know if you've If you've been there, if you've got kids or grandkids, that one's regularly full when the weather's nice. We have a nice new sign out there if you drive by that tonight that you'll see, which I really appreciate. So, and also Parkside Way Park, we refurbished that one this year. New announcement tonight is we're taking over Gisborne Twin Lakes Park. That used to be a county park, but it's really surrounded by Marysville housing and all of that, and Marysville businesses. So just last week, we were able to go up to the county and kind of do a formal transfer of that. And our parks team is now handling Gisborne Twin Lakes Park, which is a great amenity for our community. We look forward to serving thousands of families in Marysville and neighboring communities here. There's already 2 events scheduled by our park staff, a Shamrock Walk scavenger hunt that you'll see in March. And then we're able to add a Everett Steelhead and Salmon Club Fishing Derby May 17th. So you'll have back-to-back fishing derbies, basically, one at Jennings and you'll have one at Twin Lakes. So a lot of fun there. Looking forward to what we can do there. Mother Nature's Window, another great gem. If you've ever been in those woods back there, you feel like you're out in the wilderness. You get a little bit of a snapshot of it there with some of these pictures. We aim to open this park to the public here, hopefully later this year or early next year. We are in phase 1 of building a parking lot, improving the trails, and performing some vegetation, thanks to a federal grant that we got to do that. And so that work's just getting planned right now, and it'll be underway hopefully here later this year, and then we'll be able to get that opened to the community at some point in the future. We also have a phase 2 that we're seeking funding for now, and looking forward to hopefully continuing the progress with Mother Nature's Window. One of the great success stories in Marysville is Cedar Crest Golf Course. You know, there's sometimes in a city you look at a problem and you say, maybe we're not the best ones to solely be the solution to this problem. The general fund, when we had that pie chart of your tax dollars, that general fund portion was subsidizing Cedar Crest Golf Course for many, many years, up until about 4 or 5 years ago, because it wasn't breaking even. And you would say, well, maybe you should sell it off. Well, we couldn't. This money, or this park, this was given to the city for a park or a dormant entity. So in other words, we could have turned it into a passive park, which wouldn't have brought in any revenue, walking trails or something, or you could keep it as a golf course and continue to bring in some revenue. Those were our choices. You couldn't sell it off to somebody and have them, not that we would want to, but have them put up apartments or whatever there. And so that's question number 1. Question number 2 is it's great to have a city municipal golf course. Even if you're not a golfer, it's just a nice amenity to have. But I'm really pleased to say that we hired Premier Golf about 5 years ago, maybe, I may be misstating that, to come in and said, hey, you're a private sector entity that knows how to run a golf course. Let's get the city out of the golf business, bring in an expert that has turned these things around. And they came in and rounds have gone up every year. Last year, we keep thinking we can't break the records. More than 53,000 rounds played last year, 6% increase over 23. Overall revenue topped $2 million for the first time ever, 14% increase over the prior year. We now are running a surplus there. We're able to fix the irrigation system, which really needs fixing. You're no longer subsidizing that out of your general fund. And we've got a golf course that continues to be award-winning. In fact, it did win an award this year. I think it was Premier Golf Courses Course of the Year. They own a ton of courses, or they manage a ton of courses throughout the state, and this got their Course of the Year. People come from all over to golf at Cedar Crest now just because of the reputation that it's gaining. Some other fun things, community programs I'll highlight here are, you probably know a lot of the bigger ones, Marysville for the Holidays, 4th of July fireworks show, Easter egg hunt. But we also offer a wide range of classes and programs at the community center. I was just over there Monday watching a lot of people in and out of all ages taking advantage of that. Record year for registrations, up 10% from 2023. We had nearly 23,000 registrations for these. Our Super Senior Celebration was a great example. This was put on by a senior isolation grant that was given to us by the county. A lot of great things in our Parks Department. Our Opera House is booked solid with a lot of great programs for people of all ages. And so it's just fun to see what you have. If you haven't partaken in some of this, take a look at what we have to offer, and hopefully there's something for you. It was great to have Good Day Seattle out to kind of highlight some of that on Q13 last June in our community. And a few other quick things in closing, some grants that we are able to award in the community. We're a large enough city that we get community development block grants to the tune of about $300,000 a year. We also have some human services grants that allows us to do some things like support some of these entities that you have here. And I'll just give you a moment to take a look at those. We also have a micro extended shelter homes program, our mesh homes. I like to update you every year on this. We have 34 people that have been served since 2016. 13 have found permanent housing out of this. We currently have the 6 city-owned homes there. This was established by our city council in 2016. It's one strategy to help address homelessness in our community. These homes are on city-owned property that aren't needed at a particular time for a public project or whatnot. And so we started with one city-owned home as kind of a pilot program for this, and it was so successful that we've expanded it to now 6. 18 current residents in there. The mesh homes have served men, women, and children, representing single adults, single moms with kids that had nowhere to go. Maybe, you could have situations with domestic violence or others. And we are really, really blessed to have the Everett Gospel Mission kind of manage this program for us. Again, recognizing what a city does well and what a city might not be the best at. And one thing that we do, we can purchase the houses, and Judd and Black's been really gracious, and other businesses, about donating things to get them fixed up. And then the Everett Gospel Mission runs the process of managing how to help the people in them. So they have to go through a program at the Everett Gospel Mission to deal with, maybe certain issues that have contributed to homelessness and things that are just maybe things that they need help with to get out of that lifestyle. And when the Gospel Mission says they're ready to transition back, but they obviously can't afford a home or not in that type of situation, that's where these houses are available for. It also provides a covering where if there's a situation, maybe there was an addiction issue and there's a relapse, we don't have to boot them out onto the street. They go back into the mission and we just bring somebody else in. We haven't had any complaints about these houses. I guarantee you if we tried to put a homeless shelter up anywhere in this city, we'd have a Chambers with more people than are in here tonight. It would be a source of division in the community because that's a tough thing to put in any one neighborhood. But when you just pocket a house here and there, it's manageable, right? It's spread about throughout the city. Not one single neighborhood is dealing with it. So they've been really successful. It's really great to see stories of people that go into those and get a job, maybe painting, landscaping, or whatever, and you find out that they're now out living self-sustained. And that doesn't always happen fast. The goal is to get that to happen over, sometimes it takes a few years, but great work. I want to salute to the local faith community, particularly Allen Creek Community Church, which has provided mentors for these folks. People that have come out of certain lifestyles that they can relate to, and they'll mentor these folks, they'll get them volunteering, they'll try to get them a job or get them trained for a job, and so that's another key part of that. Legislative priorities there. Those are some of the ones the council and I will be heading down to Olympia next week to work on these with our state legislators. And then we would be remiss if we didn't close by thanking our many volunteers, people who serve on city boards and commissions, our Marysville Volunteer Patrol, our MVP team. We're all thinking of Byron Muck, who really was a source of inspiration on that team, him and his wife Kim, for so many years. We lost Byron tragically here last year. Longtime friend of the city. I Heart Marysville is another one put on by the Grove Church that does a lot of great work. Monthly park cleanup events at Adopt a Street, a litter league that we call it. Boy, cleaning up graffiti and cleaning up litter are two big things that we really appreciate. I just love seeing somebody out in the community picking up litter. It's so inspiring. Made me get my stuff out here last week and go down my road and pick some up as well. Not so that I'm practicing what I preach, but our staff and city paid employees do this as well. 4,200 hours of city staff litter pickup and 400 hours of graffiti cleanup. We try to clean up graffiti quickly in this city. People that graffiti things like it to stay up. So if you clean it up quickly, I know it's a pain, but as a private homeowner or whatever, and as a public entity, if we clean it up quickly, they'll tend to move on because they don't see it and they aren't able to publish their message for that long. I'm excited to announce our new My Marysville app tonight. I've downloaded it recently onto my phone. And so download the Marysville app if you'd like, and you can get a lot of one-stop shop information. You can report a pothole, report graffiti. You can take a survey that's on there right now for different types of housing types. All kinds of things and information on there. It's just in some ways much more accessible, particularly on your phone than the website would be. So proud to announce that. Thanks to our IS team for making that happen here, and it should be a great amenity for us here in the future. And with that, I do want to recognize, too, some of the departments that don't get quite as much attention. Our Human Resources Department. that Megan Hodgson runs, 362 regular employees in this city. We had 42 new hires last year. A lot of employee turnover over the last several years. Our team has managed that greatly. I mentioned information services, all the great work they do, the finance team with all their work on the budget, and another clean audit in 2023. So great job by our finance team. And with that, we are complete with that portion of the state of the city. I'd love to either online or both online and here in the audience take any questions you might have. We can alternate back and forth. So we'll start in the room here. Does anybody have a burning question? Yeah.
Do you have anything with Sound Transit? Any idea where it's going to go through up here eventually?
I don't. There hasn't been any planning yet beyond the Everett station, north beyond the Everett station. They haven't put out any, and I think part of that's because it's going to take so long to get to Everett. So no, I don't unfortunately have any idea where they would. There's several places they could look, but there's no talk of anything in Marysville for Sound Transit at this time. Thank you. Good question. Do we have an online one? Yeah. Oh, here. Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you. Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'd like to start by thanking you and your teams for all the excellent work you have done and continue to do for this city. It's
Thank you.
much appreciated. And one thing that has become concerning to me is the increased number of homelessness in the city, and it's been notable this year.
Mm-hmm.
And first, I'd like to know what the city is going to try to do to address that.
Yeah.
And also with that question, are the increased numbers of incidents in Jennings Park with people that are either on drugs or drunk, because that's increasing quite dramatically as well. Thank you.
Yeah, really good question. So this is probably the single biggest problem we try to tackle every day. The chief and I, hardly a week goes by that we're not looking at this. And you're right, all across the state and the country, really, in a lot of ways, this is happening, but particularly along the I-5 corridor, these people come. And typically the homeless problem, look, there are people that are tragically homeless through no fault of their own. There's no doubt about it. I mentioned domestic violence is one source of that from time to time. There could be somebody that has an injury, just loses a job. So we could tell all kinds of stories, but there's no doubt that the majority of our homeless, and this is just the way it is, whether people want to believe it or not, is due to an addiction problem of some sort, a substance addiction problem that has led to the people that they love saying, we're done with you, or whatever, or they've left everybody that they love, they've lost their job, and they're plugged into this lifestyle with a really vicious cycle of drug addiction. So we are limited in what we can do in Marysville by state law. We've chipped away at that. State law had basically legalized drugs up until about 3 years ago across the state. You could basically do whatever you want in the drug area, and our officers weren't able to do anything about it. We've chipped away at that and got better laws now, but it's taking a lot of time to clean up the mess from that. Getting people off addiction. In other words, if they are on the streets and committing a crime, we get them into jail. We try to get them in these programs. Like I mentioned, close to half of them accept it, but then you got the other half that's going back out and probably doing some of the things that you're seeing. So our goal is two-pronged. We lead with compassion if it's an addiction problem. We lead with compassion, but we have a hammer of accountability right behind that. If you don't want or won't accept the help, we'll do the mandatory minimum, and you'll get a stay in our facility here, and we will give the community some relief from your crime, and also hopefully put you in a position where you want to do something differently and have accountability. You know, we've kind of lost as a society this idea that you should be accountable for crime. You know, you're not a complete victim when you commit crime. So we believe in good old-fashioned policing too here, holding people accountable for crime. So that's one strategy with that CARES team. With mandatory minimums, if they have to, we'll get them off. If they've committed crimes and are prosecuted and convicted, we'll put them in jail. We're not afraid to do that in this community. And then for those that maybe aren't in that type of situation, that's where trying to expand these mesh homes that I talked about and try to get people through a program that teaches them finances or maybe gives them some life skills and then get them into one of our homes and off the street. None of that's a magic bullet because there's too many for all those programs, and then there's people that just choose not to get the help, right? They just choose that. That's just the reality. Some people want to continue to live on the streets and feed a drug habit. That's just the reality. I mean, if you don't believe me, ask our officers who talk to them every day. So it's not a perfect situation, but we are pecking away at it with that. And then I would say another solution, I want to salute our cold weather shelter. I should mention them. It's maybe not directly, but we have had a stretch of about, 3 weeks now? I think they've been open every single night and day. Those guys do amazing work at the cold weather shelter. If you have the time to donate, I know they could really use volunteers. It's just been a long stretch. Obviously, they appreciate all of the volunteers and the donations of blankets and food and whatnot. But the cold weather shelter is a way to get people off the streets too, at least make sure that, overnight that they're safe and whatnot. But that's I hope that answers your question a little bit. And we will continue to prioritize that. It is a number one priority. And we do, if people are on the streets, I should say this too, the best thing you can do to help that, if you see public drug consumption or something suspicious in a park or near your home, call 911. I know people often, they tell me this, well, I don't want to call 911, I don't want to bother them. Chief Scarpin, right? You would say call 911. That gets it recorded and it gets an officer out to at least see if we can do something about it. So please, the community helps us. Most of the times when we find a drug house or a business that's having particular problems with this, it's because they phoned it in. It doesn't mean we'll be able to clean it up for you immediately, but we'll get to work on it. So it's a great question. I know you're not the only one that has that. Is there any online? And then we'll get back in here.
We have a question from Caitlin. What happened to the $5 million to fix railroad tracks that I heard of back in 2020?
Yeah, I think what she's talking about is that Grove overcrossing that I would think. Maybe she can type in if that's not it. We did get $5 million towards the Grove overcrossing in a state grant that I think Caitlin, right, is mentioning. We are working with our partners at the state to move that money to the 156 overcrossing because of all the problems with the Grove one that I talked about. So hopefully that'll be done by the end of this legislative session in April, and that'll give us a nice jump start of funding for 156th. Good question. Well, it's great that you remembered that from that long ago. Yes.
Is there anything in the works on Armour there, Liberty Avenue, where it lies between Grove and Fourth? Also anything street calming, anything to reinforce that 25 mile an hour speed limit?
Director Laycock, would you mind, do we have anything, I'm not aware of anything specifically for that one, but in our transportation improvement plan, do we have anything for that? Sorry, Public Works Director.
All right. Okay. Thank you. The Armour corridor, we actually are working through a little bit of a design. Some of the improvements will include sidewalks along that corridor because it has broken up sidewalks. It is part of our transportation plan. We're also looking at some stormwater elements along there. That's all basically consistent with our master plan for our downtown. So while we don't currently have a long-range funds for it, it is an area where we will be seeking out grants. Some of the grants that the mayor spoke about.
Anything in relation to the speed limit enforcement, and also I live on Armour. People passing, it's one lane in each direction. People passing when people go the right speed limit just to go fast, or speeding, all kinds of really terrible.
Have we done a speed study out there that we?
I'm not aware of a recent study, but we do have that data in our database. And typically what we do is our Public Works Department works closely with our PD. So perhaps some enforcement out there with some speed vehicle feedback signs, other measures, but it's certainly an area we can take a look at.
Yeah, why don't we take a look at that area? That'd be great. Thanks, Jeff. We do have a traffic unit as well, Chief. Maybe we can put that on the priority list for the traffic.
Was there 100 block on Armour?
It's on Armour, and actually I have seen police officers stopping people for the speeding, but a lot of times the more egregious when people are passing where they shouldn't be, that's hard to catch. But it's Armour before Jennings Park, basically where the Starbucks is on 4th.
Yeah, okay.
To about Grove, but maybe before Jennings.
Yeah.
It's a straight shot.
Yeah, it is.
People like to abuse it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Online, do we have any? Then we'll come back.
Jareen asks, how is the city open grants funded this year? Our St. Vincent Conference can apply, but we have the last 3 years assisting our vulnerable residents, and we'll lose those funds.
Yes, I'm not sure if she's talking about community development block grants or human services. Okay. So we don't have a human services fund right now that is open. So unfortunately, yeah, so there's nothing open right now. If we do, we will publicize that and get that information out, but there's nothing open right now and budgeted for human services grants. We will, I don't know when the next round of community development block grants funds in the fall. So in the fall, we'll have community development block grant funds that they may be able to access, but we'll publicize on our social media and our website of any grant applications that are open. Thank you. Good question, and thank you for the work they do at St. Vincent de Paul. Yes.
I'm Bobby Dupre, and I live in Glenwood Estates, which is a mobile home park. It's a large one. And I'm wondering if the city has any available money for those of us who have to find space on your sidewalk in order to sleep because of raising of rents. And does the city have anything? I mean, we're all looking at.
Yeah, I know this is a particular problem. Haley and I met with a group from Glenwood Mobile last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago.
Alliance probably is our first.
Yeah. So there's not a great solution. I mean, the city cannot purchase it, obviously. We don't have the ability to purchase those mobile home parks, and we don't have any way to restrict rents of any type. There are some bills making their way through the legislature, but what some, I can tell you, have looked at is banding together and buying the park amongst the owners. So you would essentially have stock. You would purchase the park, have stock that owns your land, and then obviously you already own your unit. Mm-hmm. That's so the Glenwood. You could talk to Glenwood. That's what they put a group together and they're trying to do that. There's some others. What was the other one, Haley, at Everett or Glenwood that tried that? Mill Creek. Another group tried that. There's not a real solution there's just not a great solution other than that. I'll be honest with you.
I think the challenge with us is that we have 230 manufactured homes on that site, and it was purchased for $30 million.
Just recently, yeah.
Yeah, just about 3 years ago.
And then they raised the rents.
And there was they never told us it was being purchased, so we didn't have the opportunity because there wasn't a law insisting on that until a year or so ago in the state level.
Yeah.
So the challenge comes in who gets $80 more a month from Social Security and your rent goes up $700 a month. You can't afford to buy that land. So I just didn't know if the city had any.
The only thing we did have control over one thing. We did an overlay zoning where they couldn't sell it off and turn it into apartments, for instance. So if somebody comes in and says, well, we want to buy this mobile home park, force people out by raising their rent, and then turn around and develop apartments, we won't allow that. We can stop that, and we've already put that through, right, that zoning overlay. But we can't affect them, what they charge you in your existing unit, that there's no legal way to, it was heartbreaking when we met with Glenwood, same type of thing, yeah.
So we can get one of those parks that and we can just camp under a tree? We won't take drugs unless it's prescribed.
We don't want you to do that either.
None of us take drugs unless they're prescribed.
We may be able to get you a room in one of our mesh homes if you really
that
did.
would be excellent.
But no, if there was an option that we had, or if one becomes available through law, we will absolutely look at that. It's something that we know has been going on for some time. There are some bills in the state legislature this year that I don't know if they'll make it through or if they'll help.
Don't either, and that's the challenge because there's a lot of lobbying going on by big business and contractors.
Sure. Good question, though, and you're not the only one dealing with that either.
Thank you for taking it.
Connie, anything on social media?
We have a request from Sally. Can the city paint new street lanes between 88th and 100th? They have faded so bad it's hard to see at night.
On what?
Public Works Director says absolutely we can do that.
Yeah. Okay. That's true. We have our own paint truck. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, we can do that. She said between 88th and 100th. On what street? Okay. Yeah. Thanks. If we get the street, but I'm sure we could find it anyway. Thanks, Jeff. In the room here. Yes.
One more, change of subject. So yesterday, for the third time, I had a strange person following me around the grocery store. First two times The first 2 times were at Fred Meyer's. So I quit shopping at Fred Meyer's. And this was at Winco yesterday.
Okay.
And I noticed these people following me. The people at Fred Meyer's, as soon as I turned around and started walking toward them, they skedaddled. This guy just kind of kept in about a perimeter, like from that doorway to me the whole time in there. He didn't have a cart. He wasn't shopping. He was just following me around. I ended up getting an employee.
Yeah.
And at that point, I think they figured out that I wasn't having it, and they left, and the employee walked me out after I checked out. But I posted it online on the Facebook page. 250 people commented on it, and this is happening all the time.
Yeah. And
I don't even know what exactly they want.
yeah, I wouldn't know. I mean, maybe they're going to try to ask you for money. I don't know what either, but what you can do, and I know, well, you did the right thing by getting somebody to help you, but call 911. Our officers will come out and deal with that. And I think the store, right, Chief, they can trespass somebody if that's a consistent problem. They could say this person is no longer allowed. And if they give the police that trespass form, our police can haul them out of there based on just that if they identify. But let them know that's our officers are out, and they can, if somebody's intimidating you, or that's not acceptable, whether it's in a store or somewhere else.
It was interesting because I read people really well, and you can tell the people that are not from here.
Yeah.
And it was 3 different men, and they were all about 40. They looked very average. They did not stand out at all. One was white, one was black, one was Hispanic. So I don't know if they're like a car theft ring, or if he was the one that was watching me while somebody else was going to steal my car. I don't know.
Could be. We've had some emphasis patrols at retail where we will catch some rings that travel up and down I-5, but I have no idea what these individuals were. The best thing you can do is report it to the store or call 911 and encourage the store to call 911 if they're having continued problems with those individuals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Online?
There are a few different people who are asking about the recent changes to the sign code.
Yes.
Differing opinions. One
Sure.
says to revisit that and that it would be helpful for political things. Another one said it would help for things like the My Marysville garage sale.
Yeah.
Basically just asking about perhaps why those changes were made or if it would be revisited.
Sure. So they're referring to a sign code that we put into effect here about 1.5 years ago, where you, in order to put a sign up, you have to have permission from the abutting property owner. And so, I think the idea behind it was we got a lot of complaints, particularly around political season, with signs everywhere and, and in front of places. And so, maybe a business that didn't want a bunch of signs around their business or whatnot. But it was just to kind of clean up the city, I think was the council's intention. I don't want to, speak out of turn. I mean, that's how I kind of view it. And it's not perfect in every way. And we will, I think, look at different things throughout the years. And it's probably an ongoing discussion every year. And if there's some feedback that we can capture off that, it's something that we can look at to see if it needs to be changed or altered in any way. And but that was the intent behind it. It was more of a cleanliness issue throughout the community that we were hearing from a lot of citizens. And actually people have mentioned how in the view of some people, it's helped with the cleanliness issue of the community. Others would have a different opinion, like you're saying. So I think we can take all that into account and take a look at it. It's not something that we can't alter as time goes on or tweak. So it's good feedback. Thank you. In the building. Yes, in the back.
Good evening, sir. My name is Ryan Webster. I had a quick question about the concerns with the expansion on the Navy right now. The Department of Navy is looking to expand to possibly 21 ships at Everett.
Yep.
Of course, it depends on current administration.
Yep.
But also that entails Smoky Point Complex Center. Is there any talk right now about the expansion, how that's going to affect Marysville?
Particularly of the Smoky Point complex, or
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, also the roadways and so forth. and
Yeah.
how we're going to be busing sailors to and from
Yeah.
that area.
Good question. I did meet with the captain over at Naval Station Everett a couple of months ago, and she did mention that expansion. And then there is no plans, though, or at least I've not been made aware of any plans of expanding anything out in the Smoky Point area. I know they're looking at new housing units in Lake Stevens and Marysville and around. I wasn't told about any of the transportation particulars, but no, there's no current plans to expand that. Doesn't mean it won't happen. There won't be money budgeted for it. I just haven't been made aware of it yet. It's a good question, though. Yeah. Oh, online.
We have a question. Is the city doing anything for the schools? Currently, the school ratings are bad.
Yeah, great question. Of course, schools are something that we're extremely concerned about, myself, our city council and all that. The frustrating thing is that we have zero governing authority over our school district. The citizens elect a 5-member school board that solely governs your school district, and then they hire a superintendent, which is essentially like the mayor of your school district. And so the city, there's not an allowance for any city dollars to be spent on the school district. Even if we had a lot of money laying around, we cannot legally spend one dime of it to build a school or to do anything for the school district. We can't tell them how to run curriculum programs or any of that. We can suggest things, and we do meet regularly. We have a government affairs committee, some council members and myself and city staff that meet regularly with the district. I meet with the superintendent, and we suggest a lot of things, but they're just that. They're suggestions that we see from the outside looking in, that we hear from citizens on a regular basis. And then they can do what they want with those suggestions. But we have a deep interest in this. We look for ways to partner with them where we can help. We absolutely will with after school or rec programs through our parks department. If we can support them in different ways, we will do that, but we can't directly influence what they do on a day-to-day basis. It's just outside of the control. I mean, we're not elected. We don't have the governing jurisdiction in the school district. So, but we care deeply about it. We realize that it's one of the single biggest issues that's facing our community right now, and you can't have strong communities without a strong school district. So we are desperately interested in seeing things get turned around there, and so we're very attentive to it. We're involved in a lot of meetings and a lot of suggestions, a lot of opinions that we have that we're not bashful about sharing, but you'd have to go to your school board and your school superintendent to make sure that things get executed. Yes.
Charter school, using the public's.
Yeah, I mean, I think charter schools is a great idea. You've got to get the allowance at from higher governments than this to allow it in the state. I think charter schools are, there's a lot of different voucher funds, different things you could do to make the environment more competitive, but that's above, we can't do that. So, it would have to be a state law that would allow that. But it's a great option. Yeah. And it's been successful in other areas. And then, it's not just that, but somebody would have to start the charter school. I mean, the city wouldn't run it. Somebody would have to start it, but it's a great option. Yeah. Private. Yeah.
What is the plan with 51st going through the Cascade Industrial District?
Yes, so that's a good question. So there are improvements planned as that builds out, and I'm going to ask Director Laycock if maybe he can kind of walk through that from a technical standpoint of what's planned. Do we have a microphone for Jeff? Could you let him know about our plans out there?
Yeah, 51st, most of it's going to be developer driven by the building that's taking place out there. So we will be seeing some near-term improvements, particularly at the intersection of 51st and 152nd. Plan is that whole corridor up basically 51st from south end of the city all the way up to 152nd is planned up to basically 172nd is planned for 3 lanes with bike lanes, curb gutter, sidewalk. So.
Yeah, as development goes in, we are able to charge certain things and get certain things done if there's a direct nexus. Thank you, Jeff. We should probably take a couple online if there is.
We have a comment about property taxes going up every year make it hard to live in this town anymore?
Yeah, so I mean, the clear answer to that, like I said, your city portion of your property taxes are not going up year over year. In fact, they haven't gone up in over a decade. We're one of the few cities that doesn't even take the 1% property tax that's allowed under state law. So kudos to your city council for protecting that. So like I said, though, we are 10% of your property tax bill. So if you look at your property tax bill, there's a whole list of entities on there. 10% of that roughly goes to Marysville. So while we're not raising our portion of the property tax, we can't tell you who the other entities that are raising it, that makes a larger difference than the 10% that accounts for in the city of Marysville. So we do what we can to keep them low. The council and I take that very seriously for just that reason. We know there's people on fixed incomes and property taxes are difficult. That's why I said how much preferable the sales tax can be. But we can only control that piece that goes to the city, that 10 or 11%. So good question, though. And I do understand what you're saying. Is there another online one? Okay. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting to speak about graffiti. I just had an opportunity to visit Europe, and guess what? They have the same problem.
Yeah.
Everywhere's graffiti all over the world because we have a bunch of frustrated young artists.
Yeah.
Has the city considered possibly, how do you deal with them when you catch them, or do you catch them? And then what happens when you catch them?
Yeah, it's not easy to catch them because they're usually doing it at times when there's not many people out. But yeah, we would prosecute that, and it would, we even would fall under that new malicious mischief. If you're doing it repeatedly, you could earn yourself a minimum jail stay. But we would prosecute it to the full extent of the
Make them
law.
paint over what they just did.
Whatever we can do if we can catch them. Yeah. No, I agree.
They do that in Europe. They make them go out and actually they have to do the work
Yep.
on their dime. So.
We absolutely would love to catch and prosecute as many as we can. Yeah. I think we had one over here. Yes.
I would like to thank you, your team, the council, and all the directors that have worked hard at keeping the tax dollars down and not having an increase. Yeah. I used to work in small governmental accounting in Kansas, and knowing that that's not an easy task by any means. I also applaud you for all the partnerships that you guys entail. The Cascade Industrial Park is a big one.
Yeah.
And that's going to help for years and decades down the road. The biggest change since I moved from Central Kansas to here 6 years ago that I've seen is the lack of trust that the public has in government. Yeah. Not only federal, state, but local as well. And I would encourage all of us here and anybody online, you're listening because you care for the city. You're listening because it makes a difference. But when you hear the negativity, encourage them to go speak to whatever governmental entity that they're dealing with and try to get some answers. Because simply by bashing them is not going to help. Yeah. And even though I'm not from here, I wasn't one of the men that was following her around in the grocery stores.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I think that's a great comment as well. We love it when people come and share that, like you, or in these atmospheres, come and share a problem. That gives us a chance to try and fix it. We can't always, but a good portion of the time we can. I mean, I shared with you that walkway we were able to put together out in Lakewood. Sometimes we've had success with certain drug houses in neighborhoods that we've been made aware of, where our police over time have been able to deal with it. So you're spot on. I think that's the great thing about local government. The council and I were right here. I always tell people the great thing about local government is we live in the same community, pay all the taxes, same schools, same transportation system, all the things. So it really, we're right there with you. And so usually if it's a problem for you, it's a problem we're personally feeling as well. Yes.
Any updates on zoning changes and directives from the state level in terms of density?
Oh yeah, there are. And those would be good things for you all to pay attention to. And thank you for bringing it up. So last year there was a bill called House Bill 1110 that was passed. And this July, I think we have to comply with that. which allows duplexes and fourplexes in single-family neighborhoods. So this will probably be something that 3-4 years down the road, I'll be doing one of these. And well, if I'm fortunate enough to have you continue putting me in office, and somebody will ask, why are you allowing a duplex or a fourplex in my single family neighborhood? And we'll say, we were forced to by this House bill. And so it's unfortunate, these things happen quite a bit ahead of time before things happen. So I would pay attention to if that interests you. I mean, some people are for that. Some people view that as a solution to the housing crisis. But there's a lot of people that are concerned about it. I know we have some concerns about it at the local level. We would rather retain that local control to decide those things on a local level in consultation with our citizens here in Marysville. So I would encourage you, as this session is going on at the state legislature, to pay attention to the housing bills. And if you weigh in one way or the other, I'm not telling you how to weigh in, but weigh in one way or another so that you can help us maintain local control here in the city of Marysville. So yes, there are one of the biggest priorities right now of the state is to bring down housing costs. And I would say the primary way they're attacking that is to just increase the supply without increasing necessarily the land. And this is another thing, that Growth Management Act that I talked about that was passed in the 90s, that tries to jam everybody into these smaller spaces. And so when you're not allowing more land to put people, guess what you do? You allow greater density. That's the only other way to do it. And that's what our state's chosen to do over the time. I would like to see some other strategies looked at, but that's where we're headed. So it's a good time to weigh in on that.
Are there places that the state considers off limits in terms of Marysville, in terms of?
No, I don't think the state would consider anything off.
Applies to all residential zones.
Yeah, yeah.
Basically any land that's
Zone residential.
environmentally.
Oh, if it's near a body of water or something, there would be some restrictions for sure. Yeah, but anything currently zoned residential is going to fall into some of these new laws. Yeah.
Or houseboats.
Yeah, or houseboats. Yeah. Anybody online?
There's several people just saying thank you for this program tonight. There were a couple of questions about the land property swap with the city of, with the school district.
Yeah. And I talked a little bit about that, but I'll reiterate it. So the city, this is the city's land deal with school districts. So we will be taking over the school district service center, purchasing that from them. And it was appraised at, I think, $9.6 million roughly. And then they will be purchasing the city hall from the city of Marysville that was appraised, I think, at roughly 3.7 or 8. So there's a delta there, which allows us to make up for that they need some expansion to that facility. So we'll be managing that to help make that delta whole. That's out to bid right now. And then what's remaining from that will be given in cash to the school district. That we were hopeful, and I think that's what they're going to do with it. They could use it for some capital improvements to some of their needs in the schools. This is a very important transaction. We have been looking for years for something with our public works yard. You may be looking at some surrounding cities. I think Everett is looking at a new public works yard for tens of millions of dollars. But if we were to go out and purchase a piece of land and build a new public works yard, you're probably looking at $30-40 million. I don't know. It'd be tens of millions of dollars. And so this allows us to just turnkey, swap those buildings. We'll pay that delta and then move our public works yard out of this floodplain into a facility that can house everything for a growing community like ours. So it's an important thing. It's really the only facility in the city that we could do it without a lot of improvements. It's pretty much ready-made for a public, because that's essentially what they used it for before their new bus barn out north. And so it's a great deal there. And then this is an area where we were able to partner with the district and meet a need of theirs. They're not using a large portion of that facility, and there's repairs and all kinds of things that are coming out of their general fund to pay to keep up a building they're not even using a good portion of. It allows them to exit that, get a little bit of cash, and then move into this building on State. So that's the goal, and we're out to bid for the improvement on the State Avenue building. And then when that's done, we will get the school district, they'll be able to move in there. It'll have to be during a summer season. And then the following January, we'll look at moving the public works yard. So that's the nuts and bolts of that transaction. Hopefully that answers their question. Any other questions? online, do we have any? Final call in the room here. Boy, you guys have been a great audience. I think we've gone about an hour and a half here. I really appreciate you coming out. I really do. It means a lot that citizens take the time to come out and not only listen to the state of the city, but have some really awesome questions. You all are very well attuned to your community. The questions showed that. Thank you for coming out, participating in your community. Keep your eyes open for our next coffee clatch, where the coffee clashes are just designed for questions only. We usually go an hour and 15 minutes and just solid Q&A. So love those coffee clashes, gives us a chance to hear about what's going on. And then for those of you who maybe missed this or tuned in late, we will have it on the city website at some point, so you can just tune into the link and watch it there, right, Connie?
Yes, on Facebook, you can watch the replay of what people have been seeing online tonight, and then we will also make it available. So we'll announce that on our social media channels.
Great. And I do want to say one final thank you. Connie and Bridget, is Bridget still here? Bridget and Riley, this team helped put this whole presentation together, all these great slides, the video, the beautiful video that you saw, and a lot of the data, our director team for helping put that together. This is a real team effort to put this on. And so thank you for that hard work. Give them a hand. And Will over here running IS, staying late tonight, so we thank Will. And once again, we thank all of you. And I'll get out. I'll be able to share this at some of the social service clubs and at the chamber on Friday, so there'll be some other opportunities. But thanks for coming, and grab some cookies on the way out if there's any left. Appreciate you guys.